Nigeria's federal capital has become a hotbed of protests for and against the outcome of the recently concluded presidential elections, while one group headed to the ECOWAS Commission headquarters to call for the regional body to sanction election officials over claims of widespread rigging. Another group converged on the popular Unity Fountain, condemning calls for an interim government and describing those calls as senseless. Amading Uyi does have the details.
It's become a season of protests. This follows a heavily disputed presidential elections. Several groups loyal to their political candidates in the recently concluded presidential polls have taken to the streets to air their grievances over claims of widespread irregularities during the elections. One of such groups visited the ECOWAS Commission headquarters with a protest letter calling for prosecution of senior officials of Nigeria's electoral body.
Professor Yakub Mahmoud has lied to Nigerians and abused our right of choice. We hereby, before ECOWAS, pass a vote of no confidence and call for his immediate sack and prosecution.
Despite views by some observer groups commending the conduct of the polls, for days these Nigerians have continued to protest, raising allegations of widespread rigging and malpractice and vowing not to end the protests.
We are never going to stop. Even if we leave this, we are never going to stop until the right thing is done. It is a fight for which we are committed to do for the rest of our life.
In another part of the city center, another group converged, dismissing their claims as frivolous.
Asiwaju won the election clearly. The election was keenly contested by all the candidates.
We're here to rejoice and rejoice and rejoice and rejoice again because we won the victory. Most of the people rejoice with us. You can see 80% of people that were here are females. And when you see the women in the society, you see the sources there.
And the candidate of Labour Party comes out from PDP. The candidate of NMPP comes out from PDP. Atiku Abubakar also comes out from PDP. And they are expecting themselves to win. The answer is no. If you say it was rigged, the question will be by who? Rigged by who? Asiwaju rigged himself out in Lagos? Or we agree to lose Nasarawa to opposition party, state of our national party? And the incumbent governor of the state is from our party.
They say calls for an interim government is senseless, immature, and not in public interest.
They don't really know what they are calling for. They should go and look at countries like Libya. They should go and look at countries like Liberia. And then they know what that means. Let them not call for anarchy.
Calling for interim national government is senseless, is baseless, is mundane, is unthinkable, it's unexplainable, it is undoable, it is also impossible.
With the battle now shifting to the courts, the big question is whether the protests will be able to influence their final decision. Amading Uyi, reporting for News Central.
To discuss these protests, I'm joined by Zariyi Yusuf, spokesperson, Big Tent. Zariyi, welcome to News Central. Of course, NC Continental Prime. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you so much. It's good to be here.
All right, let's start with this. We've seen these protests, whether for and against, for the past 1 week now. And the protests seem to have now become big news. So let me ask you that. Why do you think the protests against the conduct of the election that has been concluded with a winner declared in the APC's Bola Ahmed Tinubu, something that has become so important?
Well, it's quite important because, let me put it this way. Of course, Bola Ahmed Tinubu was declared as winner by the chairman of INEC. But whatever that declaration is, it's a million miles away from the will of the masses. It's a million miles away from what the people voted. It's far away from what the expectation were. And it's far, it's so profoundly underwhelming as far as what even INEC set out as rules, as the guidelines for conducting the election. So it's more or less, I'd say, a robbery. And as far as Bola Ahmed Tinubu is concerned, I would call him an INEC select. And that basically is it. As I'm concerned, we don't have a president elect yet because the process has never been as corrupt, as illegal, as unconstitutional as it has been now. So basically, that emphasizes the need to protest against this very evil that is being meted against the Nigerian public.
So we've seen aggrieved candidates from two of the opposition parties approach the courts as provided by Nigeria's law. In terms of these protests, what real impact do you think the continued protests can actually have? Or is it just simply about keeping this issue at the front burner?
Well, in this regard, first of all, let me give you an idea of what the judiciary is in Nigeria. Now, let us not pretend as if we do not know that the trust that the average Nigerian, the ordinary Nigerian has in the institution has already been destroyed. You know, I think the last shot at it that possibly would have cleared doubt, was what INEC did. And to tell you how much Nigerians believe in that deceit, felt for that deceit, a lot of people went. A lot of people who have had, voter apathy, a lot of people who never cared even about casting their votes and all of that, went and got their cards, there was massive turnout and all of that. Now, that is also an overflow of what the judiciary stands for. So the belief in the judiciary to dispense justice is just, I have to say, is just an atom of hope we have in the judiciary. And then nobody went out to actually protest in the way it is now while coalition results were going on. A lot of people opposed it because they thought at the end of the day, INEC might actually reflect the will of the masses or stick to its own rules of the game, but it didn't. So looking at the fact that a lot of opposition candidates have gone to court, the protest is quite necessary because it's not about the opposition candidates, it's about the will of Nigerians. It's about Nigerians being deceived. It's about Nigerians trying to let the courts know, the judiciary know that we are not taking it anymore. Basically, That's just it. So we are holding the judiciary to account in that regard.
So let's talk about INEC now and look at one of the specific accusations. So protesters who are not happy with the results are accusing the chairman of INEC of what they've termed the greatest electoral fraud in the history of humanity. And that's a quote. Which side of this argument do you fall on? Do you think that the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, should be arrested and prosecuted? In fact, for what?
Well, Professor Yakubu Mahmoud indeed should be sacked. He should be arrested and he should be prosecuted. As a matter of fact, he must be prosecuted because when you deceive people, I mean, this was not the deal we had with him as Nigerians. When over 300 billion was voted for that wasn't the deal. That wasn't what he spoke about at Chatham House. That wasn't what he told Nigerians. Those were not the terms he got Nigerians to believe in the system, to go out en masse and believe that it would reflect their will at the polls. So it's a scam, it's deceit. And then people must take responsibility for their actions. So we don't get to a point where a man comes up and he says white and he ends up doing black. And then we just feel we're already used to it. So let's think about, 4 years later from now. No. So it is our belief that whoever he declared winner, the APC candidate, perhaps he took the sole responsibility of rigging on behalf of the party. That's, as far as we are concerned, that's basically what it looked like. From the very onset, people complained. They said, these machines you promised people would work is disenfranchising people. You've got polling units where a larger portion of people didn't get to even vote. And at the end of the day, you've got results being transmitted manually that don't even align with what happened at the polls and all. That. I mean, that's robbery. That's a crime.
Okay,
that's a crime. So we believe he should be held accountable because he lied under oath. He took an oath and he deceived people. Yeah.
All right, Zari, before I let you go, we're looking at a review. Here. Can you hear me? Zari?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. So before I let you go,
I can hear you.
All right, looking at a list, reviewing a list of the resident electoral commissioners, the ones that have been provided by the protesters and who they say should be sanctioned, it seems that it's mainly made up of states where the declared winner of the election had the upper hand, apart from Lagos states, which we know went to the Labour Party's Peter Obi. Is this an assumption that rigging did not take place in those areas where the opposition won? Because even observers have told us that all of the parties were involved in some level of rigging.
Well, first of all, let me begin by the last statement made that all of the parties were involved in some form of rigging. Well, I don't really know about that, but I do know in a general sense, the credibility of the election is even below what INEC itself said. And now with regards to, our complaints about states, it's, of course, you mentioned Lagos, even though with the exception of Lagos, it's not just all the states where, all of the, oppositions lost. It's generally a Nigerian thing. When you go to Nasarawa, when you go to Plateau, when you go to Gombe, Bauchi, and all of that, you would see a whole lot of irregularities. It's got nothing to do with any specific candidate particularly. It has a whole lot to do with INEC and the APC determined to win against all odds. Even Lagos itself, there was massive rigging in Lagos against, a whole lot of other people. There was massive rigging in Lagos. There was intimidation. There was violence. You go to Rivers, you see all of that. So it's basically primarily not about a particular party per se. It's about the Nigerian people being denied, their right to make a choice. And I think primarily that's the problem. So it's not just those particular regions where any opposition lost in particular, because our group is not particularly, partisan. We've got all kinds of people. We've got women, we've got market women, we've got young people. We've got people who even have different political alliances. But the belief is that the Nigerian masses have been deceived. They have been, it's a robbery. And I don't think we want to have another time. We want to wait another time to address it. We would do so now, and we would do so too.
All right, thank you so much, Zaria Yusuf, spokesperson for Big Tents, for sharing your opinions and your thoughts on this issue as it continues to trend across Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you.